Okay, let's start now. You are able to see the slide, right?
Yeah, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, so today we will deal with Hooke's law and Young's modulus. So just we will have a recall in the last class. Yesterday we talked about what is a stress, and in that step we mentioned about what is tensile and compressive stress, shear stress, then what is strain. Again, strain different types, normal to the body and like the shear strain and the axial strain. Then we define what is Poisson ratio. So in today's lecture, we will try to figure out what do you mean by this stress strain curve, and what is Hooke's law and elastic modulus. So here, like in every material, like when it is subjected to this tension, it undergoes an elongation. So when it is subjected to compression, it undergoes like a reduction in the length. And as a civil engineer, we will be more interested in finding the elongation as well as the like the deformation patterns about steel. So we will try to plot.
అదే
I think
తీసేటప్పుడు అక్కలేదు పెట్టగానే కాలిపోయింది.
someone's yeah, some noise is
Yes, sir.
coming.
Please turn off your mic.
Uh, okay, so we will be more, as a civil engineer, we will be more interested in finding the stress strain curve for a steel. So we are focusing on mild steel, like with the like low carbon content. And for plotting this stress strain curve, we will use a universal testing machine, and we will use an extensometer. So as we said in the last class, this testing machine is used for applying the load. So this is our test specimen. So we are interested in finding the length, like the actual length of this specimen is L2. Like we will measure, we will consider this portion, and in that these forms the grips, like the ends of the specimen. This will be kept inside the testing machine, and at these points we will apply tensile forces, some like a load P acting in a tensile direction, like pulling apart this entire specimen. And the extensometer is also fitted to this test specimen, and which measures the extension over the length L1. So these 2 points we will mark in the specimen, and we will keep the full specimen inside the universal testing machine, and we will apply some loads, and we will try to figure out how these 2 points gets elongated, because these are 2 points which are visible to our eye, and we will try to see how the distance between these 2 points increases when we apply the loads, and we continue applying the load until finally the specimen breaks. So this is our experiment which we are going to do, and we have a universal testing machine in our lab. So when we plot this stress versus strain curve, we will get a figure like this, and I will try to explain what does this mean. So basically we are trying to give a tensile load. We are trying to give a tensile load here, and we are trying to figure out what is the elongation. So basically we will find the stress versus strain. Okay, so the initial part, when we apply some the stress is plotted along the y-axis, strain is along the x-axis. So when we initially give some load, tensile load, we see that the strain also increases, like the elongation also increases. Suppose if you are pulling a rubber band, or if you are pulling a plastic sheet or anything, like initial some part, when you apply some force, there will be some elongation, and we can see that you can calculate the stress as well as strain, and for some time this strain is proportional to the strain. That's why we will get a straight line here up to point A actually. So we say that this point A is called the proportionality limit, or limit of proportion, in the sense like up to this point from 0 to A, the stress is proportional to the strain. Now after point A, we will get this point B, but we say that this point A is very closer to point B, and B is defined as the elastic limit. In some tests they are saying that textbooks, they are saying, they mention saying that the point A and B are very close to each other, and they don't, sometimes they classify proportionality limits as same as elastic limit. In steel, actually, it is true. It is almost same. Actually, this point is slightly beyond the limit of proportionality. So, what is this elastic limit? So, at this point, suppose if we unload, like we said, like we are loading the specimen and we are measuring the elongation. But till this point, if we unload that load, then we can see that the elongation goes back, the specimen the elongation becomes 0, like the specimen goes back to its original shape. So, which is a property like the elasticity property. Like when we unload the material retains the original shape. So, such materials are called elastic materials. So, this is that limit up to point B. So, what happens if we are removing like beyond the point B? Like if we apply a load beyond the point B, then if we unload the material, then the thing is like it will not go back to its original shape. There will be like a permanent deformation happening in that specimen. So suppose if you like a polythene plastic, polythene bag and all, if you try to pull it, and after some time, after some time you can see that it is not going back to its original shape. Like even if you apply some small pressure also, like after some time it gets elongated, and that is a permanent deformation happening. So that so the force applied is beyond the elastic limit. So I just want to note that so this f dash, okay, I will explain that. So I am applying some stress beyond the elastic limit, and after the elastic, so suppose I reached this point F here, and then at this point I unloaded every loads acting on the structure, and there is some deformation, but the body tries to go back to its original shape, but it cannot go back to the original shape, but there is some deformation happened. So it traces the line parallel to this line, this line, that OAB, and we can see that there is a permanent deformation. So there is a strain coming as OF dash here, and this OF dash is called the permanent set. This defined as permanent set, and the term is actually meaning the permanent deformation happening in that body because we are applying a stress beyond the elastic limit. Now let's go back to the point B, which is defined as the yield point. So this is the stress at which the extension increases rapidly for each increment in stress. So up to proportionality limit, everything is fine. Like when we apply load, there is a corresponding increase in the strain. But after the point A, what happens is like when you apply some load, then there will be rapidly increase in the deformation. Like there will be the rate of strain will be more compared to the rate of increase in the load. Like if you apply a small load itself, there will be a rapid change in the elongation part. And this phenomenon is called yielding of the material. And this stress is called the yield stress. So usually for steel, it is almost like 250 megapascal. The yield stress is coming like, and the strain is also like 0.125%. This I am saying with reference to mild state. And next comes the point C. Point C is called the lower yield point. So here the stress remains the same, but again the strain increases for some time. Like even without applying load also, we can see that there is an increase in the strain. And usually it is shown here as a lower point here, but some textbooks BC is coming as a straight line. And this region is called plasticity curve. I mean that region, the BC, because like even though we are not applying, like actually I should avoid the time that there is no stress. What does it mean? Like already there is a stress at this point B, and maintaining that tensile load at that we are maintaining the tensile load, but without increasing the tensile load, there is an increase in the strain part. So that's why it should come as a straight line, or either should come as a straight line, or like is very close. This point B and C are very close actually. And then we have the ultimate point D, where, as we said, like from point C, the elongation is too much. So the material is material deformed a lot, and what happens to the internal structure? So as a result, the material changes the internal. There is a change in the internal properties, like the crystalline structure. And when there is a change in the crystalline structure, the material has a tendency to resist to resist to the forces, external forces coming again. So there is a increased resistance of the material to further deformation. And as a result, what happens that we need to apply more force, more tensile force, and then to get the corresponding strain here. So from point C to point D, we can see that there is a positive slope, and this positive slope arises because of the fact that there is a change in the crystalline structure, which causes the increased resistance in the body, and in order to produce a deformation, we need to apply more force, and as a result, the stress versus strain curve is a positive slope in this region from C to D. And this point D is called ultimate stress. Ultimate stress means the material, the maximum stress the body can sustain, and beyond which if you apply any force, the body fails. The structure breaks apart. So what we are trying to do here is, again, the structure reached the maximum stress, and then here again we apply the stress. At this point, as I said, like the structure is going to fail, and the structure cannot have any more resistive load. The stress reduces, and finally at point E, the structure is failing, and that point is called the breaking point. So we can see that at this point D, what happens to this specimen if you try to elongate? We can see there will be, like, at this point there will be these 2 points start elongating. So this cross section becomes thin and thin upon applying the load. So at certain moment, this cross section, now the cross section width is something like this. Now after that it reduces. So when it fails, the cross section is actually getting into like very small, and that is called the necking. So neck formation. So then neck formation starts from after the specimen reaches this ultimate point. And I also want to say that the stress corresponding to this point B. Point B, we call it as yield point. It is called yield stress. The stress corresponding to the ultimate point is called ultimate stress. So this is the test specimen after breaking here. So this is called that, as I said, the necking. Like the cross section gets reduced. So we can see that, for example, like for a brittle material and for aluminium and high strength steel, the stress strain curves are plotted here. So in these two figures, the common factor is like there is no clear-cut yield point. Okay, so what does that mean? I mean, for brittle material and all, like it cannot sustain, like for a lower value of stress. Like for example, like here we applied a stress load here, and then the material goes on elongating. But as we see here, up to this point, once we apply a more load after this point, then the material is a failure. Like the material fails, like material breaks apart. So that's why the plot is up to here. And similarly for aluminium and high strength steel, again the thing is like it goes on, but there is no clear yield point. Like we don't know where is the yield point is happening, where the yielding is happening. So usually what we are trying to do in these cases is like a conventional method. We will take 0.2 times of the 0.2% of the strain. Suppose this is a strain, we will take 0.2% of the strain, and we draw a line parallel to this line, this portion up to the almost this portion is a linear part, and from 0.2% of the strain, we will draw a line parallel to the the original line, and we will try to find the stress here, and we will assume that stress is the yield stress for aluminum and high strength steel. It's not for the brittle material, only for this aluminum and high strength steel. Okay, so obviously you might have you should have asked a question like why the value of the stress started dropping after neck is formed. See, as I said here, at point D, the necking happens. So what do you mean by necking? Like necking means that the cross section reduces, the cross sectional area reduces. So as we said, the stress is calculated as load by area. So when the cross sectional area reduces, what happens? The stress is inversely proportional to area. The stress should increase. But in our case, I'm plotting the graph as like going downwards. So the reason why, because in last class also we defined the stress as load with respect to the original cross-sectional area. The original cross-sectional area like before loading the specimen. And if there is another term called true stress, which is basically the load divided by actual cross-sectional area. Actual in the sense like the instantaneous cross-sectional area. Suppose if we have an instrument which can measure what is the cross-sectional area after each type of loading, then we can see that this actual cross-sectional area reduces on applying the load. So the true stress actually increases. So this is the true stress true curve versus this nominal stress strain curve. But usually in design purposes we follow this nominal stress strain curve. And at this moment we want to define two terms, what is percentage elongation and what is percentage reduction in area. Percentage elongation is nothing but the ratio of the final extension at failure to the original length expressed as a percentage. That is L dash minus L by L, where L dash is the final length and L is the original length. And as a result of the elongation, there is a reduction in area, and percentage reduction in area will be again A dash minus A by A, where A dash is the final cross-sectional area and A is the original area. Okay, so we have to define factor of safety. So what do you mean by factor of safety here? As we said, like, okay, I will again go back to this figure. So we have this ultimate stress here, we have the yield stress here. So when we design any material or any structure or any bridge or anything like that, we always tries to make or in the sense the applied load, like if you construct a bridge and the bridge is subjected to some vehicles moving on the bridge, and the vehicles induces some stresses on that bridge. So the bridge should the stress developed in the resistive stress, the stress developed in the bridge should not be above this ultimate stress. If it is, actually it should not be above this yield stress B, because if it is within this yield stress, then the bridge can go back to the original shape. The structure can go back to the original shape. And if it is beyond the yield stress, then what happens is there is a permanent deformation happening in the bridge, and actually the permanent deformation that will decreases the strength of the structure. First of all, and finally the bridge stress should not never cross this ultimate stress. So we define a working stress, which is the maximum stress to which any member is designed, and it should be less than ultimate stress. So we define the factor of safety as the ratio of ultimate stress to the working stress. Yeah. And coming to the Hooke's law. So within the elastic limit, we have seen that the stress is proportional to strain. Again, this graph. Within the elastic limit, the stress is proportional to strain, and we can see that there is a linear relationship. So the ratio of the stress to the corresponding strain is a constant within the elastic limit, and I'm saying elastic limit, because beyond the elastic limit, what happens is, we have seen, like it is like a curve. It is not a linear proportional curve, and we define this constant as the modulus of elasticity, or known as the Young's modulus. So sigma we have writing E into epsilon. So what will be the unit of E? Because E will have the same unit of sigma. Because sigma is Newton per millimeter square. This epsilon is a unit dimensionless quantity. So obviously the elastic modulus will have the unit of sigma. And for stiff materials like steel, the approximate value is 200 gigapascal, like 200 into 10 raised to 9 pascal. That will be the value of the Young's modulus. This is approximate value. It ranges from 200 to 250, like depends on mild strength steel or high strength steel, like high carbon steel, like that. And for plastic, which are like brittle materials, this elastic modulus will be like almost like 0.7 to 14 gigapascal. Now we will go to using this concept of Hooke's law in finding the elongation as well as the reduction, shortening of the bar. Suppose we are having a bar subjected to tensile load as well as the compressive load here. We can write sigma equal to P by A, and stress is again, strain is delta by L, elongation by the original length. And we are having the Hooke's law here, sigma equal to E into epsilon. From this expression, we can calculate delta equal to PL by AE. Okay. This is a basic formula for calculating the elongation of a axially loaded bar. Maybe like we can have a numerical example right now. So here, a circular rod of diameter 16 mm and 500 mm long is subjected to tensile force for 40 kilonewton. The modulus of elasticity for steel may be taken as 200 kilonewton per millimeter square. Find stress, strain, and elongation of the bar due to applied load. So I will call some names, and I will see, like I want them to answer. So you have I hope you have a calculator with you. So Krishna Yadav, are you here now?
Yes, I am here.
Yes. Okay. Can you tell what is the stress for this?
Stress is a load by area.
Okay. So can you calculate the value?
Sir, okay, sir. The stress is equal to 40 kilonewton by, it's equal to what is it, diameter pi square by r square, no, by rs, 2 pi rh, 14 to 2 pi 8 into 500, it's equal to what is it, into 10 power 6. Wait, so calculating, sir.
Okay. Others can also calculate.
Into 10 power 6. So 40 by 10 into 10 power 6 ऊपर जाता है. So 1591.54 Pascal.
Okay. And what about the strain and elongation?
Strain.
Yeah.
Strain का stress पता चल रहा है. So strain अगर इसे stress by strain equal to modulus. Modulus. So strain is equal to 1591.54 divided 200. So 7.95 strain. 7.95, sir.
What about the elongation?
Elongation. Strain is equal to del L by L. 7.95 into 500. So 300 no, into 10 power minus 3. So elongation 3.9.75.
Unit.
Yes, sir.
What is the unit?
Meter, sir.
3.9 meter.
Yes, sir.
Check
Millimeter.
again.
Okay, sir.
This road is actually very small.
Yes, sir. Made in millimeter, sir.
Millimeter. Okay. No. So what are the values you are?
Oh,
So what happened to your calculation? So what is the again stress you are getting?
stress side is I think calculation mistakes, sir. No, 1591. Oh,
So
sir, I've taken in meters, sir. Actually, sir, unit conversion mistake.
okay. So can you calculate it again and just ensure that you are getting the same values?
Okay, sir. I'll try.
How do you calculate the area?
So area 2 pi RH. It is a rod, so it must be a cylinder.
No. It should be pi r square.
Oh, okay, sir. I think pi
Because
RH.
you are considering the cross-sectional
Yeah.
area.
Yes,
You are applying a tensile force, and
yes,
that
sir.
tensile force is acting on that cross-section, and the cross-section is pi r square.
Oh, okay, sir.
Hello.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Sir, we always take the area perpendicular to the force.
Yes.
Okay.
We not in the sense like we are considering tensile force here. The tensile force is acting perpendicular to the cross section.
Okay.
So that
So,
cross section
like-
we have to consider.
Okay, sir.
Yes, sir.
So stress is coming 199 megapascal.
Yes, 198 megapascal.
Yes, sir. 198.94 Newton meters is square.
Okay.
And strain is 0.995 meter.
Yes. And delta is coming 0.497. Then you have to use the previous formula here, PL by AE.
Yes, sir.
So Krishna, you got it right? Did you get
Yes,
PL
sir.
by?
Yes, sir. I got it.
Okay, fine. Yeah. Then, okay. I just got one more name. Ridu Rani.
Yes.
Hello, Ridu Rani. Are you here?
Yes, sir. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
Actually, your voice is very feeble.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yes, sir.
Did you try to solve this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, did you get the same answers?
Sir, I got the same answer. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So this is the next question. A hollow steel cube is to be used to carry an axial compression load of 160 kilonewton. The yield stress for steel is 250 megapascal, and the factor of safety is taken as 1.75. So the following three classes of class of tubes of external diameter 101.6 mm are available, and which section do you recommend? Like which class do you recommend? The light, medium, or heavy? Everyone can solve it, and I will call one name like after 5 minutes. Okay, I will call one name, Harish Kumar. Harish Kumar, are you here now? I couldn't hear you. Hello? I think he has unmuted, but okay, I will call another name, Jacob Thomas. Jacob Thomas. No response. Bhavana. Bhavana Ravi Kumar.
Sir?
Yeah. Did you solve this problem?
Sir, that factor of safety thing, that one I can't understand, sir.
Okay. So factor of safety is defined as the ultimate stress to the working stress. Ultimate stress, or we can say the yield stress.
Okay.
Okay. Like the thing is, like we have to design a structure, and in that structure, whatever forces which is coming, it should not be above the yield stress.
Okay.
Always when we design any structure, the primary concern or the primary aim we are following, not the primary aim, the primary motive will be like the structure will not have a stress beyond the yield stress. So whatever the load, so how can we adjust the stress acting on that structure? The stress is dependent upon load versus area. The load by area. The load is the external load coming on the structure. So that we cannot, either we have to restrict the load or we have to adjust the area. So if the load is kept constant, how can we adjust the stress? We can adjust the area acting there. So if we want to reduce the stress, of course what you have to do is we have to increase the area.
Increase the area.
So here the question is, like if we take this heavy class, then it is like there is more area. So that means that steel tube can carry more load compared to the light steel tube. So, but again, the design, like the consultancy team, they are giving the details like this steel tube can carry maximum of 160 kilonewton. So we can, like for safety purpose, we can say that okay, you design with a heavy tube. That's a usual, that's easy way of saying. But if you are going for this heavy tube, then we need to construct the thickness is 4.85. But it is like using extra resources to construct this tube. But at the same time, if you do a consultancy work and if you say that okay, if you are going for medium one with the 4.05 thickness, then we can save some materials here while constructing. So the question is here again, which section do you recommend? So I will start with this problem. So yield stress is given as 250 Newton per millimeter square, the 250 MPa. And so what will be the working stress here?
250 by 1.75.
Yes, 250 by 1. So how much it will come?
That is 142.85.
Yes. So that is the working stress. That is the maximum stress which should act on this steel tube. Or we can say that is the external load, and that is the maximum external load which should act on this steel tube, so that the this steel tube is not going any yielding, or it is not crossing the yield limit. Okay. So now we can proceed, right, with this information.
Okay, so like working stress should be 142.85.
Hmm.
But here the load is given as 150 kilonewtons.
Yes, 160
So we have to
kilonewton.
adjust in area.
Yes. So what will be the area now?
Sir, it's coming around 15 millimeters, sir, thickness.
Yeah, that's okay. Like okay. I was asking like I'm trying to interact with everyone. Okay, it will be better if you can tell your name also, because we are having an online class and I don't know like whoever is speaking.
Sir, my name is Sharan, sir.
Okay, fine. Okay. And 15, yeah, I think it is 15. And Bhavana, did you get the answer? The area? Bhavana?
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, the area is for that radius 50.8 mm, the area will be 8107.319 mm square.
How did you calculate that?
Like no, the area for external radius 50.3 mm. 50.8 mm.
50.8 mm. Okay, fine. So we have taken days 142 by 160. The stress is coming as the working stress is coming as 142.
142.85.
85, and you have to mention the units also. Okay, so it is Newton per millimeter square, and the area will be like the load by the stress, and the load is 160 kilonewton. So 160 10 to the power of 3 by 142.85, and it is coming as how much is it is coming? What you are saying is you took the inverse actually.
Okay, 160 kilonewtons by 142.85, right?
What is the formula for the stress? Stress is P by A.
Yes.
So from that you have to calculate area.
Area will be 1120.
Tell me the unit also.
Mm square.
Yeah, millimeter square. And now, okay, fine. I will ask with another. Ayush, are you here now? Ayush Ranjan.
Yes, sir. Hello.
Okay, I want to continue solving this problem from this point.
Okay, sir. Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So the area turns out to be 1120.06 millimeter square.
Yes.
And we have an external diameter of 101.6 mm. So we need an internal diameter also.
Yes,
So
exactly.
From that we can calculate the thickness. From that we can minus the thickness. So we will get the thickness from the internal radius minus external radius.
Yes. So can you calculate that?
Wait a minute, sir.
Yeah.
Radius.
So did you get?
So the internal radius is 47.
No, how did you get
47.
that? 47.
47.16.
Like, how did you get that?
I divided the area with pi, so I get the difference of external radius minus internal radius.
No. Like you are considering a hollow steel cube here with the say suppose outside diameter is capital D and internal diameter is small d.
Yes, sir.
And how did you calculate the cross-sectional area?
Cross-sectional area is pi external diameter square minus internal diameter square.
For a circle, cross-sectional area is pi r square. So if you are using diameter, it should be pi d square by 4.
No, sorry, sir, not per diameter, radius. Radius.
Okay.
Pi times the external radius square minus internal radius square.
Okay. Pi times the external radius square minus internal radius square, and you are equating to this value here, this 1120 millimeter square.
0.06 meters square, yes, sir.
And how much is the value you are getting for the internal radius? Oh, okay.
Internal radius 47.16 millimeters square.
Okay,
millimeters.
right. Yeah. No, yes, exactly. Yeah, it is 47.16 millimeter.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and from that, how do you calculate the thickness?
We can minus that value from the external radius.
Okay.
8
so how much you get?
8, 12.2. Wait. 3.6. It's 3.64.
Okay, so with that information, you can say which class it belongs to.
Light class?
Yes, exactly. That's the answer. So the permissible stress we are calculating, the yield stress divided by the factor of safety. So that
factor of safety is 1.75 right now.
Sorry, yeah, 1.75 is a mistake, typo here. It is actually 1.75. It comes as 142. Yes, it's a typo. It is instead of 1.55, it should come as 1.75. Thanks for rectifying it. Again, the working it means that like our structure, we have a stress has given us load by area, and maximum stress issued for that structure is the yield stress, and the working stress should not exceed the yield stress. So that's why we are giving the term called factor of safety, and this is the maximum like the stress where on which we can work in this. That's why the term working stress means that. And then we can calculate the area, the load by stress. Load by stress. Then from this for the hollow tube, and then we can calculate the thickness. So it is a light. The class belongs to the light. Okay. And okay, the time 11:20 now. Yeah, for today this is okay. I'm just finishing this. So in the next class, I will be talking about compound bars, and also some properties of this elastic constant. There are something called the shear modulus. We have said is the elastic modulus, and in elastic modulus because and similarly we are having the shear modulus where the shear strain and shear stress is coming into picture. So I will try to explain what is elastic the shear modulus, and there is some relation between elastic modulus and shear modulus in the next class, and then also I will try to explain what is a thermal stress, and also some problems on compound bars where there are different bars. Now we have considered only one bar. Suppose if we have two bars joined together, like welded together or something, and with a different cross section, how do you evaluate the deformation? Okay. Anyone have any doubts?
Sir, I want to ask something. That last question.
Okay. Can you tell your name?
Sir, I am Amit. Sir, in this question, first I calculated the ultimate load, which is ultimate load is equal to 1.7 times 1.75 times the working load, which is given to be 160 kilonewton.
No, I didn't get it. Can you repeat it again?
Sir, in this question, I first calculated the ultimate load, which is 1.75 times the working load, which is 160 kilonewton. Because once the steel.
Yeah, tell me. Yeah.
Because once the this steel tube is designed, it will be used to carry a maximum load of 160 kilonewton. So that should be the ultimate load. That should be the working load.
No.
160 kilonewton.
160 kilonewton is not the working load. 160 kilonewton is the maximum load the steel tube can carry.
Yeah, sir. That's what I'm saying. So maximum load.
That's a maximum load the steel tube can carry. But as a designer, we will not design with that maximum load. We will keep some reservation, like suppose like we don't know like what is the load which is some uncertainties can come, or sometimes if there is an external factor or something.
Yes, sir. So that's what I'm taking. I'm taking it as the maximum load which can be loaded with that tube. So with that, I am finding the ultimate load that steel tube can carry, and that is 1.75 times the 160 kilonewton.
We have to calculate with respect to the stress only, because this axial load it will be given by the company. Like, okay, you have to design a tube, and according to our concern, we are saying that the whatever forces or compressive forces acting on that tube is 160 kilonewton. And like when you purchase or like any material from the industry, or if you are doing to construct, like there will be a lot of design codes, and all these design codes are written with respect to the stress parameters. They are not written with respect to the load. So that is the reason why we are starting from the stress relation, not in terms of load.
But sir, I did in this way, and I got everything same as what the other students find out.
Yeah, maybe it will come in the same way, because this is called the working stress method, and the same thing you can apply, because like it's only mathematics part. You are just doing that using the factor of safety. You are just trying to figure out what is the maximum working stress here.
Sir, what I thought before solving this question is that they are asking for a tube which has to carry a maximum load of 160 kilonewton, and that should have a factor of safety of 1.75.
Yes.
So I thought of designing a steel tube having factor of safety 1.75 and having working load which is a maximum up to 160 kilonewton.
Yes.
So according to that, I calculated ultimate load, which came out to be 1.75 times the 160 kilonewton.
Yes.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, that is also possible. And then you are using the information about what is the stress.
Yes. And that ultimate load upon that area of that tube, cross-sectional area of that tube, is equal to 250 Newton per mm square. After that, I did it in the.
Not the ultimate stress, the working stress, the working load.
Sir, working load is. Sir, after finding out the ultimate load, I found out the cross-sectional area of tube according to that only.
Oh, okay, fine. Yeah, understood. Yeah, so you actually are doing in a reverse way. Yes.
In what way, sir?
You are doing in a usually we start with this. We will try to find, because we are dealing with the terms called permissible stress allowed in a structure like that. So in that sense, okay, the way you have done is also correct. Yeah.
So how cross-sectional area can be different in two cases? Like you said, he did it another way. Like cross-sectional area will be same only, na?
Cross-section area we said different because the previous problem, right? Or this problem? Second one or the first one?
No, this one only. What he was saying now.
No, he didn't. Amit didn't mention anything about cross-sectional area.
Yes, sir. After calculating the ultimate load, I did it in the usual way. The same, like pi d1 square minus d2 square upon 4. That's the cross-sectional area.
That is
as
a
usual.
cross-sectional area because the cross-sectional area is calculated like, suppose if we are applying a tensile load, axial load here, then the plane in which this load is acting normal. So that is nothing but suppose this type of a cross-section. So that cross-section here we will calculate as pi d square by 4, which is a circle. And since it is a hollow tube, pi d square by 4 minus the internal diameter, pi the small d square by 4, like that. Okay, so any other doubts?
No, sir.
Okay, so then we can wind up the class today. I will download the attendance sheet. 1 second.